Hello and welcome to Your HR Career Podcast. I am very delighted today to be interviewing the extremely delightful Paul Kendall. Welcome, Paul.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
It's a real delight. We haven't spoken for 10 years probably,
I think it is
other than
like
LinkedIn stuff. Yeah, something like that. So it has been great to reconnect, and I'm very interested to lift the lid on your career and your experience. Yeah. So you are an L&D professional.
That's right. Yes.
Great. And in my podcast, we've got a variety of HR and learning people. I view everybody the same, but somebody did pull me up on this in a previous chat, and they said, well, when you say HR, do you mean learning as well? What's your take on that?
I one of the reasons I moved into L&D is that I thought I wasn't hard enough for some of the horrible, worst things that HR people have to do, actually.
Do you think we're of a similar family? Do you think?
Definitely. And actually, I've always every role I've had, I've always been part of the HR function, and I think that's been really important because,
yeah,
like honestly, I see the L&D team are often the support behind the HR business partners or managers. They're the ones who are so closely connected to teams, and I've always been like a center of excellence behind those people. So yeah, I think they are absolutely inextricably linked and very, absolutely.
Yeah, and you're right. And I think the most effective teams are when they're combined.
Yeah,
so
I think
it should be one concept.
Yeah, exactly. And I look to my peers in our HR function where I am now as helping us to kind of bang the drum and support our L&D objectives, and equally, I aim to support them so that they can go and support the practice groups and the teams and the people that they work so closely with on a daily basis. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All part of the same family, definitely. Yeah. I think they agreed, but it was just the nomenclature they were slightly questioning. But so if I say HR, I mean HR and learning. Let's just strapline that. Good.
Maybe right. I don't know what the answer would be. Maybe someone in HR will say, "Oh no, don't put us with learning."
Nobody's actually said that.
Okay, that's good
so far. So L&D, tell us then, where did it all begin for you? I love starting stories. Tell me where it all began.
Yeah, so my career journey began straight after university, and essentially I just fell into a role, and it was a recruitment role working for a recruitment agency, bizarrely doing graduate recruitment. I think back now, I think, how on earth did I end up there? And I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do coming out of university, other than I thought I better get a job because there's a ton of debt coming my way.
What did you do at university?
Well, I did a history degree, so actually there is sort of a link, and this is a very naive link, that I thought I'd quite like a job in research, because in history degree, that's all you spend 3 years doing, lots and lots of research, and was looking for jobs where that might have been something, and there seemed to be a connection to research in recruitment roles, and I don't think I ever found that, but I think that was probably the thing.
Okay, a thin thread.
A very thin thread, yeah.
Thread, yeah. Okay, yeah, I'll buy that.
Very thin, but I suppose what it did, I always look at what the positives you get out of every role, and it opened a door ultimately. I ended up finding an opportunity with one of the organizations that we were recruiting roles into, and that was to join their team as a HR assistant. So that went into a generalist HR role, kind of first level, advice, on the hotline, because it used to be phone calls back then. But I spent most of my time then supporting their graduate scheme. So it was everything from sort of graduate recruitment to onboarding of their graduate scheme and their sort of summer vacation schemes as well.
Yeah.
So that was probably where I got my first sort of dip in the toe in the water to L&D. And it was something as simple as I was delivering, presentations as part of their induction program, and I was seeing the organization of very large development programs, bringing all these graduates together to start their graduate scheme. And I think that probably sparked my interest of connecting with people, and I suppose supporting others. Then that's been a thread throughout my whole career. So that probably kick-started the move that actually maybe the L&D world is the space where I want to make my mark.
Yeah, and that's a really natural, I can see that really natural transition from recruitment into grad recruitment into L&D, because they are of a similar feel, aren't they, as you say, those large scale programs. So working with people, working through people.
Yeah. And it probably grew from there, because from that role I then moved into another sort of graduate role with a law firm, but that was responsible for the whole trainee solicitor program. So it wasn't just the recruitment, it was also that 2-year training program, and I was then getting involved in more training, particularly for the trainee solicitors. But again, kind of had the opportunity to expand my experience and started doing some of the sort of manager training for their trainee supervisors. So probably at that point, that's where probably the real passion for learning and development really kicked off for me, and it was starting to get little bits of experience of working with different levels of people in an organization and kind of broadening my L&D kind of experience. So that's probably where it really started to take off at that point, and then grew from there into kind of progressing in pure L&D roles. So becoming an L&D advisor, for another law firm, and then having an opportunity to become an L&D manager with a completely different organization in the manufacturing world. And so it was, from that point on, it was always L&D roles, and I did some professional qualifications, my CIPD within learning and development, and so on.
And so you had a clear pathway then, that it was L&D and you were building experience and building knowledge. And I asked quite a few people kind of what they've learned along the way and what their big moves were. And you gave me a really interesting example of kind of learning how to engage and influence people in matrix organizations, and people who've worked in professional services, maybe people listening who work in professional services. There is a peculiarity, isn't there, about that realm that requires more influencing and relationship building than perhaps other organizations. So tell us about how in your L&D realm then, how do you go about doing that, engaging and influencing? What kind of top tips would you give?
I think firstly it's recognizing that it's a really important part of the role. And I think probably with the benefit of hindsight, where you can look back on your early career, if I could go back and give my younger self any advice, it would be that you can be quite focused on, I've got a task to do, got to get it done, and that's just it's quite a transactional thing. But actually, if that then stops you from investing the time in building relationships, because actually in the matrix organization I've worked in, you get a lot of the stuff done actually through other people who you have no direct influence. And so for me, it's often been about getting to know them on a personal level as well as a professional level, and appreciating more what are their priorities, not just what are my priorities. I might need to get these things done, but actually what are the bigger other priorities that they're focusing on? What am I not seeing that is a priority for them? I think that's probably been something I've tried to build on in terms of building relationships, especially when you need something from somebody who you don't have any direct influence over.
Yeah, and that's particularly relevant, isn't it, in that kind of mid stage of your career, because you don't have the seniority to bring to bear. So you are very much based on your reputation and building that relationship and influencing sort of above you. It's a particular difficulty, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And then I think, like you say, your profile is really important. So I think the things that I hope have served me well is then you do what you say you're going to do.
Yes.
That if you are saying you're going to do that piece of work, or you're going to pick up with an action, well, actually make sure you follow through with that. And sometimes that can be down to just the update that I've got this. I might not have the answer yet, but I've got it. And I think that's been important to build trust in particular. That's so important, kind of partnering with a business and working in a matrix is you've got to earn their trust to get that done.
Yeah, the organisation you're in now, are you hybrid working, home based, back in the office, mixture?
It is It's hybrid.
Yeah.
So we have kind of some expectations of sort of a 50% in the office, 50% working from home. I've got a global role, so it's like, well, where should I be? I can be in the office in Manchester, but actually I've got early calls to Australia and late calls to America. I'm not speaking to anyone in Manchester.
You be where you need to be.
Yeah. There is an element of that, but I think it's a hybrid split.
And so how do you think that affects that relationship building? Because the period that you were talking about when you were doing it successfully, we were all face to face and you'd schlep up the floor and you'd chat to someone in the canteen or whatever, but that's changed, hasn't it? So how do you approach it, or how would you recommend people approach it now?
It is really hard, actually. I joined, I'm at an organization called Squire Patton Boggs. They're a global law firm. I joined Squires in January 2020. So about 3 months before we went into lockdown.
Interesting timing. Yep.
And so it was like, I think what has worked in terms of hybrid is different communication channels and when's the right thing to do. So when is an email best? When is a Teams call best? When is it's just right to pick the phone up without putting a diary invite in? And I think that's probably, I think as we went into the pandemic and everyone's using Teams, we probably felt a little bit of video conference death. You know, it was too much of it. And actually then quite draining that I need to speak to someone, and you just pop up the stairs in the past and go and have a chat with them. And now it turned into, oh, I'll put something into their diary. Well, nothing gets done quickly. So I think probably knowing when's the right time just to pick up the phone to someone, you know, rather than putting something in the diary is also quite important.
So that's kind of replaced the formality of putting your head around their door. You would just give them a call and say, is now a good time? Can I have 2 minutes?
Yeah, I think that is important. And it also helps build relationships. That is I often think quick phone calls can be just as impactful in terms of building a relationship than a Teams call. Certainly more impactful than an email, for example.
Yeah. So it's pick your medium. Yeah. Good advice.
Yeah. I would definitely, I think that. And I think then I've also tried to be conscious of people's diaries. So like trying to avoid putting something in someone's diary, I'm saying putting it in their diary, when they quite clearly have back-to-back meetings all day. You can see what someone's availability looks like in their calendar, and just trying not to be that person that takes up their lunchtime, because that might be the only time they've got spare.
Yeah.
I've been more mindful of that. I think that's because when we are working hybrid, you can just get sucked into constant meetings all day, and then suddenly you've been on Teams all day.
Yeah. And in the sort of 5 years then since lockdown, what do you think's changed in terms of the L&D landscape and what professional services are expecting? You know, how has what you've been doing day to day shifted in that time?
Obviously the acceptance of being able to learn virtually, you know, that had to happen. We had programs that were face to face within, you know, rewrite all of these so that they are available virtually, and don't just turn a 5-hour face to face program into a 5-hour webinar, because that's soul destroying. Turn it into something that's actually engaging virtually was probably the biggest challenge for us. But what it has given us, I think, is the ability to reach more people. That's one of the definite benefits. Is we're able to run, you know, virtual workshops now, which people may say, oh, that doesn't feel as engaging as a face-to-face, but and that, you know, perhaps true, but the flip side of that is, but I can get you on a virtual webinar, and you're going to interact with people from across the world. And our business is the global network, our internal global networks are so important. Actually, if everything was face-to-face, we wouldn't have that. So actually a benefit of COVID was we proved that virtual could work. And it took a bit of getting used to, people finding it hard. You know, you would have people joining they would think they were joining a webinar and they're just going to be talked at for an hour. And that's probably been an experience a lot of people in my organization have been through, that, oh, actually, what, you want me to put my camera on and talk? I just thought I was able to put myself on mute, turn the camera off, and carry on my other screen doing the work. So that's been a learning experience for people to go through. But certainly 5 years later, we see that as one of the biggest benefits of our programs, people are saying, is the global network they're introduced to.
Yeah, and it's that connection, isn't it? And it's immediate, and that must be really, really, as you say, really interesting for people to see on the screen. There's people from all over the world. You know, you'll see by whatever their naming convention is, and it might say the office name. It makes you feel joined up, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
No matter what your role is, because some roles, like you've referenced, that you're global, so you're interacting with people out and about, but other people may not do that all the time. But through those learning opportunities, they're getting to see that, aren't they?
Definitely, and actually, it creates a network for them. So we'll have, people in our business who are working with clients who are based in a different country, and now they've got a connection to someone in that country who they can just pick up the phone and say, actually, I've got this client call, and you can even talk about what are the cultural nuances I need to be mindful of doing business with this person. Those kind of things. It's really opened all of that network up, which is great.
See the positives. Very good. I also asked you, and you gave some very succinct and excellent answers to the question, what advice would you give to someone starting in their HR and learning career? So let's look at these, because I think yours are really, really choice. You can tell that it's kind of what you do, because they were really good, Paul. So let's start with the first one. So your first one was say yes to everything. Tell me more about that.
I think that's just because my career has, I think, been, the opportunity has been driven by just saying yes to everything, and being seen as someone who is willing to kind of throw their hand in and help out. So, I've been involved in projects where, how do we, in COVID, how do we get people moving around offices without, in one-way systems? I don't know, but we'll get involved in that project and we'll help each other out with that.
Arrows. I mean,
how do we, kind of roll out systems that I would, never be involved in using, but actually project managing things. So it's just given me exposure to things that I would never have thought I would do in an L&D role. But actually from that, it's helped me understand the businesses that I've worked in much better. It's helped me build relationships with people who that trusting comes in, because they can see me, supporting people and helping. So I think that's it. You just get so much from experience. So I don't think I've had one experience where I've come out of it and gone, actually, throughout my whole career, there's not one thing where I go, that was a mistake, or I regret doing it. Everything's hard. It's just been every experience I've had, I'm like, well, actually, I've learned something from that. So it's positive.
Fantastic. Excellent. Love that. Number 2, invest time in your own development.
Yes, and that, I think, is because we're usually the worst for doing what we tell other teams to do.
Yes, definitely. I mean, between us, you and I have probably done training courses for, I don't know, 5,000 lawyers, accountants, and managers around the world. How many management training programs have you been on?
I know,
I've not been on any. Have you been on any?
But that's right, isn't it? You just don't.
Exactly.
You don't kind of invest in yourself, and there are, lots of reasons for that. But I would say, I've tried to focus that a lot more, particularly kind of what's the breadth of. It doesn't have to be sitting through a training program. It can just be, actually, I'll get that experience. That experience is a learning experience, and your own development, or having a mentor. They're probably the easiest and most valuable things you can do, is getting experience and getting a good mentor. But I think the other, obviously, keeping up to date with what's going on for me, what's going on in the world of L&D. How is technology changing how we work? How will it make us more efficient with AI and so on? So that's all important stuff. But also, I think the commercial awareness is one of the really important ones that if I would give advice to anybody thinking about a career in HR, is that you've really got to understand the industry you're in, because otherwise, how can you've got to talk in the language of whoever your client is. So having that commercial understanding of the profession you're in is just as important as the HR or L&D skills as well.
Yeah, definitely. And in terms of self-development, are you a podcaster, a book reader?
I'm
self-development in that way.
Definitely podcaster, particularly like, when the train journeys come up. That's probably what I do most of. I've got more into books, actually. Over the last couple of years, I've I've been going through a coaching qualification, so it has made me
Oh, okay.
reassert some
Yeah.
habits on my personal development. And actually, I have read a lot of books through that. So,
And any podcasts or books you would recommend?
well, there is a book called Human Connection in Coaching, which I'm just reading at the moment, which is really, really sort of interesting for me personally. It's a huge part of kind of my future practice and development.
Yeah.
So that's probably that's the current read at the moment.
It's really good to have some recommendations for people listening. To check things out. Excellent. So we've got say yes to everything, invest time in developing yourself, and number 3 was be patient. I liked that. Tell me about that.
I think that's probably to try and like enjoy the stuff you do, because actually, if you can't enjoy your job, then that's not great, is it? But I suppose I'm thinking about reflecting over my career and probably thinking kind of earlier on, you kind of, oh right, where's the next step up to the next level, to assistant to advisor, advisor to manager, manager to head of. That whole sort of trajectory, it's not a quick promotion isn't always the best thing in the long run, because actually the experience you gain doing and in the detail is really, really valuable and will help you later on anyway. So, in the role I do now, I'll probably get less and less involved in the day job because I've got a very, very good team around me who do probably better than I would be able to do it. But so you kind of then lose some of the reason you got into L&D was because you enjoy helping people, supporting their development, and actually I do less of that on a daily basis.
And that's the nature of a bigger role, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's interesting that thought you were saying, looking back. I think there often is a sense, isn't there, in the early years that it's you've got that kind of internal fire to push and progress and move on, and sometimes you might not enjoy what you're doing as much because you're sort of looking on the horizon to what's coming next. And I think that's really good advice to people. How do you yourself know when it's time for you to move? What is it within you that says I need the next thing?
That's a good question. I think probably the work that I'm doing, if it's kind of work that I'm involved in a lot of projects or rollout of things, if once that's out and it's a business as usual project, or if I am getting involved in the same repeat things, that's probably been a moment where I've thought, well, actually now what other experience do I want, and am I going to get that from doing these things? So always looking for that next kind of stretched objective or the next task which is new is probably something that I've kind of thought about.
And you referenced as well in your answers around this idea that also sort of life plans and what you want to achieve also has a part to play, doesn't it? Let's not forget, most of us are not sailing our own, completely on our own to all of this. You get to a stage in life where you want to be in a different location, or you want more or less travel, or whatever it might be, and that has a part to play as well, doesn't it, in how we progress in our careers?
Definitely. And I was definitely when you don't have any responsibilities and looking after yourself, you kind of can just focus on whatever you want to do, and I probably did that earlier in my career. And then with the role before where I am now, that was an amazing role. Absolutely loved it. Loved the work I was doing, but I knew I was just going to be in London more and more. And I'm, based in the north. And actually, at that point, other life things come into your mind. So I was thinking about, we're thinking about wanting to raise a family, and I certainly wouldn't want to be away Monday to Friday in that situation. And so, definitely as you get older, those things start to. Yeah. I found they started to have a bigger say in kind of what I wanted to do and what the next move might be.
Yeah. And do you think, again, sort of recognizing the change of remote working opportunities since COVID and lockdown, is that less of an issue now, do you think?
Well, I think so. It would have been interesting. The role that I was doing that I loved, that I left 3 months later, we went into lockdown. So I would have been at home for 2 years anyway, because we were all working from home. And I don't know. So I do sometimes wonder, well, what would have happened with that role that went to working from home. And I don't know if, as they came out of the pandemic, would those clients have expected people back on site? But I do think it's made it easier, and it's opened up more opportunities. Although I do see probably a bit of a shift back, you know, kind of, you have to be close to the office where you are technically based, and there is seeming to be an increase in expectation that you go into the office a little bit more.
Yeah, it's certainly what I'm seeing in professional services is this desire that you've at least got a hub office that you're going to be in a few days a week to kind of try and recreate the community.
Yeah.
So I think, but it's, you know, it's interesting to reflect on it, isn't it? Well, fantastic. We have time for one last question. I always finish in the same place. So where are you now and what is next for you?
So the role I'm in now is such a good experience because it's this big global role. I get involved in developing an L&D strategy. I've implemented global programs. I've learned so much from the different cultures and locations that I'm working with. I've built a small but great team. They're the really close-knit team who work, you know, spread internationally, but, you know, work really closely together. So actually that makes a huge impact on your job, actually being in a team that you enjoy spending your time with and talking to every day. So that's kind of the role I am in, and I'm interested in where it goes as well in the whole HR function, because what's the future of technology? Like it will change the way that people work. So we've got such a big part to play in our organizations of, well, what does that look like from a policy, from a procedure, from a benefits, from a learning? It touches every part of the HR function. And so I'm really interested to see how that plays out in terms of the capabilities people need to do their job, and how do we deliver that as an L&D function. So like the future, I think, is a really, really interesting one of how we go through this transformative change. It's like the generational change, isn't it? So that's probably the now, and also over the last year, like I said, I've just completed a coaching qualification and just going through my EMCC accreditation. So coaching has become an increasingly important part of my work over the last few years, and I've, you know, that's probably where I get huge job satisfaction. And I said earlier, kind of you find you do less and less of the stuff that you got into it in the first place. Actually, with coaching, that's where I get that satisfaction, because I'm working so closely with people and, you know, helping them to find the space to unlock whatever it's their thinking or whatever it is that they need to unlock to get through that challenge or get to that particular life or work goal. That's a huge you know, kind of satisfaction for me personally. So I definitely see that as a future for me in terms of how I will do more of that in the future.
Yeah, and that sort of continues as well, your journey of learning, your self-development, because there's so much to learn, isn't there? And every new person you work with brings a different angle and a different learning and a different perspective. So it's the gift that keeps giving.
It is definitely, and I would recommend anybody who is interested in coaching or think about it is transformative. It's sort of changed my outlook on a lot of things, and my development it's been really insightful going through that journey.
Fantastic. Well, I wish you the best of luck with whatever is coming, and thank you again very much for your time. So that brings us to the end. Thanks everybody very much for listening. This is your HR Career Podcast. Do please check out my other episodes, which you can find on Substack. And if you would like early access or behind the scenes content, do please sign up to my mailing list. Thanks very much for listening. Thanks again, Paul.
Thank you.